If you work out 4 hours a day and you only need 45 minutes, 4 hours a day is still better than doing nothing. I just gave you an entire workday back to your life. To a businessman, that could be a lot of revenue. An extra workday a week.
Well, it is to me. I mean, Time is money. So if you're telling me you're going to give me 8 hours back in my week, I can be that much more productive. I mean, that's worth a lot.
I always tell people it's not an 80-20 thing. I hear that a lot. It's like 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. No, it's a 100 and 100. Nutrition controls 100% of what it controls, and your strength training and your exercise controls 100% of what it controls. So you can't build muscle just by eating. You have to go get a stimulus in the gym, and you can't nutrify yourself with exercise. You have to get that from your food. I had a client lose 100 pounds, and he gained it all back. And I thought, why did that happen? Why would he gain all this weight back when he told me how much this transformed everything about his life, his marriage, his business, everything? Well, because then I found out things in the other parts of his life were not going well. We have to meet the fundamental principle that you have to consume less than you're burning, and you will lose weight.
Okay.
How you want to fulfill that is somewhat based on preference, but it's going to be a higher protein diet that puts you in a calorie deficit until you get to the goal weight you want to be.
Right.
I started this years ago, but I solidified it and named it Limitless about 12 years ago.
Welcome back to the show. I'm excited to have my special guest, John Thompson, fitness lifestyle coach, and all of the above. This guy is a genius in the gym, and he's here to talk about whether or not you need to kill yourself for hours in the gym, whether or not to get results. John, welcome to the show.
You do not, and thank you.
Great. John,
genius in the gym. I like that.
You like that too, huh?
I heard that.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm really excited to have you on. And I personally utilize your services, and they're great. But what I really wanted to talk about is I think a lot of people get into this mindset that you have to spend hours in the gym over the week, and that's not necessarily true. But maybe before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I've been coaching for 17 years and started out with one-on-one personal training, and then had this idea for a men's performance group for businessmen because it essentially was created for me. I wish when I started my first gym when I was 20 that I would have had a coach to tell me what I'm telling my men now, which was how to balance your business, your body with your family, and get everything dialed in for optimal performance, because I noticed everyone was becoming one-dimensional. So the first time really this happened was I had a client lose 100 pounds, and then he gained it all back. And I thought, why did that happen? Why would he gain all this weight back when he told me how much this transformed everything about his life, his marriage, his business, everything? Well, because then I found out things in the other parts of his life were not going well. So he didn't forget how to diet. He didn't forget the workouts. He just forgot how to balance everything. And so if we don't have that as the centerpiece of our transformation of body being balanced in business, we call it, then we're waiting for one disaster, one problem from burning essentially everything down. Short story on that. So I started this years ago, but I solidified it and named it Limitless about 12 years ago. And then we've just kind of gone from there. And it's really focused on businessmen and performance for businessmen to balance out everything. How can they transform their life without giving their life to the gym, without giving their life to fitness? Because he will do well for a while. They'll lose their business or lose their job, or their wife will leave them, or something will happen, and they dedicate their life to the gym. They're like, I'm going to get after this. And they do it for 12 hours a week. But in the second that fire wears out and they don't have 12 hours a week anymore, they don't know how to balance it. And they go from 12 hours a week to 0, and they start focusing on business again, or they get a new girlfriend and they get married and they have kids, and everything goes to crap again. So that's what we're preventing.
You're standing in the way of this repeated vicious cycle that you've seen over the years, that you have seen your clients actually go through. And that's why you tailored this program to be just more about, not just about getting physically fit in the gym, but also balancing other parts of their lives to make sure that this is a sustainable thing. And it's just bigger than just getting ripped.
It's ending the loop of self-sabotage, of endless self-sabotage over and over again. People are really good at losing weight, but they'll lose the same 20 pounds 100 times, and they'll never get to the place where they can experience high performance and unleash their potential, where their fitness serves them in other areas outside of the gym. Because your fitness does serve your business. Your lack of energy and ability to focus will affect your results and your revenue and everything else. Your lack of energy and focus will affect your marriage. It'll affect your parenting. It'll affect your spirituality. If you're broken down physically all the time and you're always tired and you always feel like you're under-recovered, you're going to have problems in every area that you take your body into, which is everywhere. You can only be a businessman because you have a body. You can only be a husband because you have a body. And you're taking this deteriorating machine that can be optimized, but you don't know it's out there. And I don't know how much we want to get into history or anything of why we think we need so much time in the gym. Literally just this morning, I already told you earlier, a guy stopped me on the street and he was like, yeah, I do 3 sets of 10. And that's the most common thing you'll ever hear. And that's actually from an old World War II study where they took soldiers they were rehabilitating. It was the Delorman-Watkins study. And they had them do 3 sets of 10. And it was a strength training study. And they all got stronger and built lean tissue. The problem is that would have happened no matter what protocol they would have put them on. All strength training works when it's done at a high enough intensity, whether it's 17 hours a week or 2 hours a week. It'll all work on a deconditioned person, especially someone who's coming back from war and they were underfed and they're injured. To get them to get stronger and build muscle is like you have to be an idiot not to have some results with them. So you'll never see a strength training study that doesn't produce a positive outcome because strength training works across the board for anyone who currently isn't doing it. The question is, what's the minimal effective dose we can get in the gym where we're not spinning our wheels doing more than we need to? Because you'll never know. If you work out 4 hours a day and you only need 45 minutes, 4 hours a day is still better than doing nothing. So that's what everyone always says. Like, oh, what I do, at least it's better than doing nothing. But how scientific is that we're doing a workout program that's just better than doing nothing? Because all exercise is better than doing nothing. If you look at the studies about all-cause mortality and the biggest gap you get, the biggest increase in health outcomes you have with the population is when you get them from doing nothing to something, nothing to something. Then once people are doing something, there's a broad spectrum of some things they could be doing. And we don't spend a lot of time figuring out what's the best something for them to do. That's what I'm trying to do is what's the best something for a businessman to do where he's not spending, if he spends 9 hours a week in the gym, this is a good example I give all the time, and I can get you down to 1 hour per week. I just gave you an entire workday back to your life. To a businessman, that could be a lot of revenue. Well, an extra workday a week.
Well, it is to me. I mean,
right.
Time is money. So if you're telling me you're going to give me 8 hours back in my week, I can be that much more productive. I mean, that's worth a lot. And I think a lot of people would agree that if they could have more time to do the things that are revenue generating in their business or have a better opportunity to spend in the work-life balance and be with their family, then why wouldn't they want to do that if they're not having to be in the gym 9 hours a week?
Even if you love being in the gym, what you just said, even if you didn't dedicate that time to business, if you dedicate it to your, I mean, that's a couple of date nights a week you could go on. That's spending an entire day with your kid or kids. There's so many better things you could be doing with your time than spinning your wheels in the gym. Not that the gym's not important, it's very important, but spinning your wheels in the gym is not. To spend more time in the gym than is absolutely necessary every minute you're in there that you don't need to be in there. When you're 19, you got nothing to do and you might be getting into trouble more if you were not inside the gym, it's fine. Go spend 3 hours a day in the afternoon and hang out with your friends and bench press and squat all day long. Go ahead. You're not under enough stress for it to do anything to you. You got nothing else better to do with your time potentially. Go ahead. But a 30, 40, 50-year-old businessman with a wife and kids and a business to run, that is absolute insanity to spend more time in the gym when your only goal is to actually get a result. And if you can get that result off less, think of it as a pharmaceutical drug. If 10 milligrams gives you the results you need, taking 20 is not going to double your results. A lot of the time it'll kill you or you'll get less results with that. So you want the minimum effective dose with strength training. And we found the minimal effective dose is actually very, very little when it's done in the right order with the right intensity. You don't need to be in there. And that's even a somewhat conservative estimate, 9 hours. I know guys who are in there for 2 hours, 6 days a week. They're in there 12.
Well,
that's not even commute time to get to the gym and get ready to go to the gym and then come home and have to shower again and all this stuff to get back into their day. That can be a 3 or 4 hour delay from the time they think about going to the gym by the time they're back in the workflow again. It takes a long time to get back into flow state, to get back into working and being productive.
So to your point, I think, one of the things that I personally have experienced is that when I was used to think that you had to do like 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I mean, I've been on a lot of different programs. I mean, I think I've shared with you that I've kind of done, I want to say I've done them all, but I mean, pretty much I've seen all these things and nothing has been as effective as the program that you have me on now, where I'm basically working out to failure 1 hour a week, right? That's 2 sessions that you got me on of 30 minutes. And
20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. It's an hour either way.
Right. I will say that it has been pretty impressive to me because it took me a while to unwind that thinking that because I'm not doing this every single day, that I'm not getting results, but you've proven me wrong. So I think a lot of people that are listening today or maybe listening or that somebody might share this with, would probably like to hear that, hey, you don't have to go and spend 10 hours a day. So this is obviously some level of thinking that has penetrated our mindset, that somebody's told us over the years, over and over and over again, that in order to get results, you need to spend this much time. You're saying, hey, no, we can do this more efficiently. I'm going to give you back your time and that's going to be worth more.
Right. It comes from just our human nature that more is better. For one, we think if we're going to be in there longer, we're going to get better results. But it's also because we think about the gym correctly. We think about it exactly backwards. We think that when we're in the gym working out, we're getting results there when all that is actually doing is stimulating limiting the body's ability to give you the results. The results happen when you're asleep. They happen when you're in recovery, not when you're in the gym. When you're in the gym, you're breaking yourself down. You're weaker. I say this all the time. You're better off getting mugged before you walk into the gym than when you walk out. You're a weaker human when you leave the gym than when you walked in. Because of that weakness, the body goes into a cycle of adaptation. And over the course of the next several days post-workout, that's when the body regenerates, rebuilds, remodels itself. And that's when you get a little bit stronger and you get a little bit more muscular. And if you're in weight loss mode, you're losing body fat. That's when the transformation takes place, is when you're at rest and when you're asleep, when growth hormone levels are surging and all of this. And so if we think about it backwards, if we think of the gym as a signaling process, that we are signaling the body to do something and we're trying to turn a light switch on, we don't need to sit there and flick the switch over and over again for 2 or 3 hours inside the gym. We do it once, we do it properly, and then we leave and let the body do its thing. And then when the body's gotten back to baseline and is recovered, we go into the gym and do it again. And we do that again, and then we do that again. And that compounded process over weeks and months, you'll be a stronger, fitter, more resilient human. You'll unleash your potential, your performance will increase, and your performance will get even better because you're spending less energy in the gym. People don't look at the cost of going to the gym from an energy standpoint. That's the most energy you're going to put out ever throughout the entire day in those minutes. If you drew a line, a chart of an effort chart, and you woke up in the morning and you brushed your teeth and you got dressed and you went to work, it would cause these little blips on the radar. That one set to failure in the gym, that line would go across the street and come back. The amount of effort you're putting out is very, very high. So it's not these workouts are easy. This hour a week is tough in the gym, as you know.
Yes.
One set to failure is not easy to do. It's why most people won't do it until they're coached on how beneficial it is and how much time it'll save them. But it takes a lot of energy. So to do that for twice as much or 3 times as much as you need or 8 hours a week extra than you need, even if it did get you a little bit better results, which it doesn't, but if it did, it probably for most businessmen would not be worth the effort because of the draining it does to your performance and your energy that you could be giving to your wife, to your business, to your kids. That energy all comes from the same bucket. You only have so much. You don't have an infinite amount of energy. It's a finite resource and you have to allocate it to your life the way you see fit.
Well, I think allocation is a really good word. And I'll even say that before this, I think everybody gets overwhelmed, inundated, right? That's just going to be something that is just proverbial, being human. And I think ultimately what we're all thinking about doing is how do we stay consistent? How do we get into this routine? And the more and more I think about it, and the more and more as I've gone through this whole process with you, I've realized that I will do this more frequently, meaning like I'll be more consistent is a better word, because I know that it's achievable in an hour a week. And, you know, if I choose to go and walk with my family during the week or do a little bit of cardio on the bike, you know, during the week, you know, the point is I'm not doing that necessarily for the fitness. I'm just doing that for activity. Right. And that part is a great choice that I get to make because I've got all this time to be able to do that, which helps me balance out the rest. But my point is that I want to be able to do something and I want to be able to do it well, but I don't want it to be such a chore that if I have to make a choice between my family, business, and working out, that I just don't work out, which I know is a pivotal piece in my level of performance because it makes me stronger and I perform better in all those other areas by being able to do that.
And recreation and fun is part of the performance game. Your brain processes different when you're at a state of play. Kids know this. Kids just focus on play, pretty much all they want to do. And then we get older and we forget about doing that. We don't realize how much that regenerates us as humans to have our brain at a state of play instead of in a state of productivity or focus, but at a state of play. So again, all of these extra hours per week and per month add up to a lot, and we can spend time doing things that we want to do, whether it's your own hobbies yourself or again with your family or to build your business even more. Every single one of those is astronomically more important than you getting extra time into the gym, especially when it's not productive anyway. It's a waste of time.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair, but this is not the only component too, right? You also have to eat right. You can't just eat whatever you want, right? I mean, we got to get back into the nutrition piece.
Of course you can. You just got to work out more and you can work it all away.
That's what I try to tell you, but you're like, no, that's not the case. So
when it comes to, so you can't, I always tell people it's not an 80-20 thing. I hear that a lot. It's like 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. No, it's a 100 and 100. Nutrition controls 100% of what it controls, and your strength training and your exercise controls 100% of what it controls. So you can't build muscle just by eating. You have to go get a stimulus in the gym, and you can't nutrify yourself with exercise. You have to get that from your food. When it comes to fat loss, it's basically 100% diet. Exercise doesn't matter at all, which most people think is crazy. But
are you sure about that? Because I don't know. Positive. So you're 100% sure that it has nothing to do with exercise and you're more in the line of nutrition.
Well, I'll prove it to you. So obviously exercise burns calories. So you think, okay, if I have to burn calories,
fair enough.
I'm going to burn fat. That's true. But when we say that exercise burns fat, what we're saying is it has some type of special fat loss utility to it, which it doesn't. So an easy proof of this is that if you eat, let's go say you go on Instagram and you find the best fat burning workout workout you could find. A guy's doing burpee backflips with a barbell, and this has been proven absolutely to tone and sculpt your abdominals.
I want to be able to do that.
You've got to
do,
yeah, and you've got to do. If you don't do at least 225, you're a wimp. So burpee backflip with a barbell, and you do this for 4 hours straight, and you're the man. And you walk out of the gym, and you're bleeding, and you sweat, and you can barely walk. You just killed it.
I just love that visual.
That had to have been, that was the best fat burning workout you ever did. Now, let's say you burned 4,000 calories doing that workout.
Okay.
If you eat 4,100 calories that day, you did not perform a fat burning workout. You're going to get fatter still. If you eat more than you burn, you're going to get fatter.
I see where you're going with this.
You cannot create fat out of lack of activity. You can only get fat if you eat something. Fat is made out of what you eat and what you didn't use. Stored body fat is simply energy you ate in the past that you didn't need at the time, and your body stored it as fat tissue. Now, if I don't go to the gym and I don't do the burpee backflips and I don't burn 4,000 calories, say I only burn 2,500 that day, and I eat 2,000, I didn't do any fat burning workout at all, but I actually lost body fat that day. And on that plan, I will lose 1 pound of fat every single week, approximately, eating 500 calories less per day than I burn. So now I have no exercise involved at all, but I'm losing body fat. But before, I'm doing 4 hours of burpee backflips. I eat a little bit more than I burn still, and I'm getting fatter at the time. So this is why, is a little bit of both. Could you exercise a little bit more and eat a little bit less, and that would swap the burn rate versus consumption? Yeah, of course it would, but it doesn't matter to focus on that very much. What you should focus on is diet for fat loss and exercise for muscle building, health, performance, because you need more than just to be lean. Getting lean is the first step of increasing your performance. Every pound of fat you build, you have to build 7 miles of blood vessels to support that fat tissue. So being 10 pounds overweight, you've built 70 miles of blood vessels. So this is a liability on the body when you don't need it. You don't want to carry fat you don't need. It puts excessive pressure on your joints, ligaments, soft tissue, all this stuff. So we want to get lean first, but from there's lots of skinny people who aren't that healthy and don't perform very well. We have to get our muscle tissue up. Muscle is your longevity tissue. It's the biggest organ system on your body when it comes to weight, the tissue system of your muscle. So want to get as muscular as we possibly can outside of taking steroids and doing this, just naturally getting as muscular as you can, as strong as you can. You're more likely to survive a car accident. You're more likely to survive a disease, surgery, everything, all the stats. The more muscle you have, the stronger you are, the better the outcome is in all of these situations. So we get lean, we build muscle, we increase performance, and then we live our life.
Well, that's interesting because I think a lot of people get into that mindset that if I just go to the gym all the time, getting to just being in there all day long, and hey, I get to eat what I want. I mean, I hear that fallacy all the time because people are like, hey, I could just eat whatever I want. What you're basically saying is, yeah, okay, great. You can eat whatever you want, but you're going to pay for it.
It depends on what they want, what they mean by that. That means a different thing to different people. Some people, what they want is 12 donuts every single day. Some people, what they want is a relatively healthy diet. Go ahead.
So to that point, if I'm looking at this and I'm new to this, or maybe I'm not new to this and I've done this for a long time and I'm not really getting stable results, there has to be a balance between the two, right? For what you're going for. Because what I'm hearing you say is, look, if you want to lose fat, right? You want to lose weight, you could do that with nutrition. But if you want to be lean, you want to build muscle, right? You have to exercise. But there's got to be where this two kind of intersects, where if you want long-term success, long-term results, call it the lifestyle change. I like that word because they're always saying, hey, are you changing your lifestyle long-term? And if you're going to be successful and you don't want to be on the yo-yo train, right? Because I've been on that train before, lose, gain more, lose, gain even more, right? I didn't want to continue to do that. So where do you think that balance is? Because how strict do you really have to be if you want to be able to maintain once you get to that physique that you want and you're performing well? How much of that discipline has to continue?
When Ozempic meets steroids, that's when you've crossed the line, and it's the perfect threshold right there. No, I'm just kidding. So say that question simpler.
Well, basically, I guess what I'm really trying to get at here is that if I want to do something and I put my mindset to it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is, I think what we're really trying to achieve here and what you're talking about, kind of all the components that go into it. But if we only do it just for a short period of time and then it just all goes to back to normal or whatever you want to call it.
What they were doing before.
That's the point. So I think a lot of it, like even what I want to know is one of the questions in my mind is, how do we maintain this? How do we keep this realistic? You know?
So for one, if someone goes on a 12-hour weight plan and they weren't exercising before at all, now, like I said, something major happens in their life, they lose their job, they get divorced, something happens where it triggers them that I'm going into body mode, I'm doing this for me for a while. That's an emotional state. They lit the candle and it's going to burn out pretty quick. And they're likely going to go back to, I'll say their A and their B routine. Their A is their ass-kicking routine and their B is the way they used to be. And they're going to go back to it at some point. What you're on is something you actually can do long-term. Why? Because it's an hour a week.
Right.
When are you going to run out of time for that? You're just not prioritizing well if you can't do that. I just posted that Drake meme yesterday where it's like the first photo and it's like, no, I can't do that. And the second one's like, yeah. And the first one, I put my head on it instead of his and I replaced the body and it's like, I don't have 30 minutes to work out. And the second one's like 9-hour Netflix binge watch. And he's got the point like, yeah, I can do that. So everyone, I don't have time to work out, but somehow they finish like an entire series of a new show every single week. They can do it, right? So it's prioritizing. People have the time. People legitimately don't have 8 to 10, 12 hours a week to exercise. I don't. I wouldn't do that. But when you find out that you can get just as good of results, if not better results, off 1 hour a week, and you keep that in your mind, that you're not just doing some short routine that happens to get you by, that you're doing an optimized routine by following these guidelines and only spending an hour a week. Let's just say they're slow and it takes them 2 hours a week.
Right.
Again, that's per week what most people do in a day at the gym.
And then you have the nutrition component in there.
Nutrition component, yeah. So we learn to eat a certain way. We have different protocols we can do this in. If we want to go into fat loss for a second, we can. I mean, fat loss is a consumption game, right? If you eat less than you need, you're going to lose weight. Now, again, we have to get into how you're going to fulfill that model, right? So you can go carnivore, you can go keto, you can go on a vegan diet, you can do all these things that get you into a lowered calorie state. Their research shows that whichever way you enjoy that the most is going to work best long term. Now, you'll hear things about magical diets, or I hear this with carnivorism a lot, which I'm not opposed to, but long term, it's not really a realistic thing to stay on. And I think there's probably some issues with not having fiber and vegetables and fruits in your diet. But let's just say that someone does it for 30 days or 60 days and they lose a bunch of weight. I'm for them doing that to lose some weight if that works for them and they are satisfied doing it. The problem is people treat that as a magical plan and they try to get everybody to do it. And they say, listen, I started doing carnivore and I eat whatever I want and I lose weight. Before I was always starving and I couldn't eat whatever I want. Again, it's back to that statement, whatever I want. That's a subjective statement. Whatever they wanted changed when they became carnivore, because you're so full off of the protein. You're so satisfied off all the protein you're eating, and meat takes longer to eat. You have to chew it more times before you swallow. All of these things make you feel fuller and more satisfied when you eat. If you have a piece of chicken on a plate that's this big in volume and it only has 300 calories in it, and then you put 3 Oreos on that same plate and that has 300 calories in it, and it takes you 11 seconds to eat the Oreos, but it takes you 11 minutes to eat the chicken, you're automatically going to feel fuller just from the chewing and the time it took you to eat it. Just those 2 components. Not to mention the chicken has 45 grams of protein and fills up your belly more with more volume, and you're going to have more water probably while you're having the chicken, and then you're going to feel more volume in your stomach. That's going to make you feel fuller. There's all these components to what makes someone feel like they're eating whatever they want. They certainly weren't eating whatever sweets they wanted because they weren't allowed to have them. Not saying you should have them, I'm just saying that they weren't having all these foods when they were on.
So just to be clear, you're not suggesting that I eat 3 Oreo cookies for dinner.
I mean, if you want to,
just to fulfill that need. So okay. So
what I'm saying is, when someone says I can eat whatever I want now, and I think everyone should follow this diet, well, that worked for them. And whatever they wanted, it's like when someone has the skinny friend. They go, my friend, she's 110 pounds. She eats whatever she wants. Well, whatever she wants keeps her at 110 pounds. It's not that she really can eat whatever she wants. She can eat 5,000 calories a day. She's not doing that. No matter what you see, the few times you see her eating powdered donuts or whatever, really watch her. She probably eats like 1.5 and then puts them away. And she doesn't finish the whole, she doesn't have a binge eating problem. She goes to, Taco Bell and eats half a burrito and then doesn't eat anymore. Like, right, she doesn't eat very much. She eats a bad diet. She's not probably healthy, but she's not eating that much food. So we look at people who are skinny, we're like, oh, I don't have the genetics like them. They're not eating very much food most of the time. These people that are really skinny.
Right. So to your point, I think what we're really trying to drive down here is that, look, if you want to be able to maintain and you don't want to go on the yo-yo diet, right? You get something that's really intense that loses weight, and then you go back. You're saying that you do have to find that balance. And I think everybody's body,
you can't find the balance when you're in fat loss mode,
okay,
because that'll keep you where you are, right? We have to meet the fundamental principle that you have to consume less than you're burning and you will lose weight.
Okay.
How you want to fulfill that is somewhat based on preference, but it's going to be a higher protein diet that puts you in a calorie deficit until you get to the goal weight you want to be.
Right.
Then once you've reached that goal weight and we're focused on just getting stronger and building muscle and performance the rest of our lives, we're going to increase the calories to more of a maintenance plan. But if you go back on your binge eating plan or whatever you were eating before, you're going to slowly get fat again. That's just going to happen.
So really, this is that commitment that we're talking about. A lifestyle, lifelong commitment, however you want to describe it. You're really saying is, look, if you do the work to get there, there is an element of maintenance, and something's going to work for, whomever, whether it's a macro diet or whether it's just, they just don't eat a lot proportionately, whatever that is, they can find that balance. But as long as they don't go too far one way or another, they're going to be able to maintain what they've been able to build.
Right. What it takes to get you there is not what it takes to keep you there. So you got to get into a deficit and create that vacuum in your metabolism to get to the weight you want to get to. But once you get there, you don't have to stay on a fat loss plan when you have no more fat to lose. So you're going to increase your calories, likely from carbohydrates and fats, and you're going to find a maintenance plan. And when your weight goes up, keep a lid on it. If it goes up, I tell people to have a 5-pound debt ceiling for the most part. If you want to be at 185, the day you hit 190, you're like, I got to cut down for a little bit.
5-pound debt ceiling. I love that. That's great terminology.
And actually follow it, not like the government who just expands it and changes moves the goalpost.
So to your point though, right? So is it really healthy to weigh every day? I mean, I think it's helpful because how do you know where you are? So like maybe you swell up to 8 or 9 pounds and you go over your debt ceiling, you know, just as you kind of described it. And then it's just better to kind of get back in. And I think there's an accountability factor there, you know, if people do weigh themselves because they'll be able to see where they're at.
Yeah, I'm not a big body acceptance guy who thinks it's emotionally unhealthy for people to weigh in every day. If it hurts you to get on the scale, we have something else trauma-wise that maybe we need to deal with. This is typically more of an issue with women than men. That's just facts. But weighing yourself every day is like checking your bank account every day. If you're trying to get out of debt and you refuse to look at your bank account because you don't want to see the number because it might hurt your feelings, then you're not going to get out of debt. You got to deal with reality for what it is. So when you get on the scale, the problem with the scale, and there is a good argument for this, the scale's not the absolute indicator of what's going on, because if you gain 3 pounds of muscle, you're going to gain 3 pounds on the scale.
Yep.
If you look at that and say, oh, well, I gained 3 pounds, I must be doing something wrong. Well, you have to evaluate what phase you're in. Have you been eating more of a maintenance plan and if you've been focused on building muscle, well, then gaining some weight's fine if that's your goal. But if your goal is to maintain and live a healthy life and you've already reached your goal weight of whatever, say it's 185, and you think it's a good spot for you to be, and all of a sudden one day you're 187, don't worry about it. You gain some water overnight, doesn't make a big deal. You get up and you're 189 one time, and again, these aren't like single days. You wake up, you're 185 one day, and you're 189 the next day, and then you're 187 the next day, and then you're 185 the next day. That's fine. That's normal. That's why I say you're on a 5 pound ceiling. Now, again, this is relative too. If you're a bigger dude, if you're a guy who's sitting at 250 and that's like your weight, you're 6'4" and you're a large guy, his is going to be more like 10 pounds, right? Because a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. You don't have to retain that much water to gain some weight. But if you're in the relatively more normal size of men and women between 150 and 200 pounds, a 5 pound ceiling is good, because the day you wake up and you're 191 and now you're 6 pounds over, you've probably been slipping, especially if that wasn't if you were 185 yesterday and you're 191 today, that's different. That's absolutely a hydration, water retention inside the muscle type of thing. But if you've been creeping, it was 187, 186, 188, 187, 190, 189. Now it's 191. You've been trending upward for the last several weeks.
No, and I think you laid that out really well, because I think people kind of get dissatisfied. I mean, I can see how like people might get frustrated. You know, they wake up one day and they're 6 pounds heavier. But one of the things that I tell myself, and I think we have this conversation, is, okay, did I theoretically eat the amount of calories that I would have needed to do that to actually gain 6 pounds of fat overnight? That's not realistic.
You couldn't. You would have been, to eat that much food, you would have been vomiting to try to stuff that much food down. Right. And you can't create the fat overnight anyway. The body takes longer than that. So that's not reality. So people shouldn't be obsessed with the scale. But that again, that's just not understanding what the scale actually means. If you cut your arm off and weigh in, you're going to weigh less as well. So that's an obvious thing of, okay, that didn't really count. I cut my arm off. But in the same sense, we don't understand why the scale is changing to a certain degree. Clients that I've trained in the past who refuse to get on the scale are always the ones who self-sabotage the hardest, because you will see the scale going up weeks before you'll notice your pants are tighter, before you'll notice it in the mirror, visually looking at yourself and noticing, oh, wow, I think I'm actually fatter than I was. You'll get on the scale and you're 18 pounds up and you're like, oh, crap, how did I let that happen? Well, you let it happen because you weren't monitoring what was going on. So yes, you should weigh in. I think it's good just to weigh in every morning if you have a scale in your bathroom and just check. You're just
part
checking,
of the routine.
You're just checking the stats. You're not super obsessed about it, but when you go above that 5 pound debt ceiling, then it's a quick fix. The next week or two, cut down a little bit and you'll be there. But once you start gaining 15, 20 pounds, now you have to go on a full-fledged fat loss plan again. And it's discouraging. And you have to go into 12 weeks of being in a calorie deficit. And now your performance goes down a little bit because you're a little bit more tired when you're in fat loss mode. And you don't want to do that over and over again. Plus, you never enjoy actually being fit and healthy, because you're always yo-yoing by such as you're swinging the pendulum so far each direction all the time that you're always in some massive fat gain mode or fat loss mode. Well, when you're getting rapidly fatter, you don't feel good because you're eating like crap most of the time. And you go into a fat loss phase, and then you don't really feel that good again because now you're eating less than you need each day, and your focus goes down a little bit and your performance goes down a little bit. So you never reach this magical high performance state where you're at the weight you need to be at. We call it fight weight. Like, you're not at your fight weight. Okay. You're swinging. You're just always swinging. You're gaining weight. You're losing weight. And most people are not gaining weight and then losing weight down to their actual goal weight. They're swinging 20 pounds over 20 pounds what they should already weigh anyway. So they're losing the same 20 to 40 pounds above the 20 pounds what they really should lose, right? So they have 40 pounds to lose, but they're losing the top 20 over and over again and not losing the last 20. So they're swinging, and they're swinging above where they should be in the first place. And this causes even a bigger problem, because now even when they're leaner, they don't really feel that good either. So they never get mentally, emotionally a break where they feel like they actually accomplished something significant. And this is from being on plans that are too hard, that's too much time in the gym, crazy diets that are too hard to follow, that are complicated to follow, that have too many rules to them. These aren't lifestyle plans. I'm not one who says you have to be on a balanced diet to lose weight, because that doesn't make any sense. A balanced diet's going to keep you where you are. It's going to keep you with a six-pack. It's going to keep you 50 pounds overweight. It's a balanced diet. A fat loss plan is unbalanced. It's less than you need. So your body literally eats itself to get the calories, because you're not giving it to it in the nutrition plan. And then once you've eaten yourself to where you're at your goal weight, then you add those calories back in, so your body stops cannibalizing its own tissue.
So I think you brought up something that I think really kind of takes us to this next segment. where this all really ties together, right? We have the exercise part, finding time in the gym to be effective. We have the nutrition part, we have the maintenance part. But as we talked about when we opened up in the show, is we talked about the balance part, right? And if you want to be at your fighting weight, or if you want to be a high performer, which you're going to be required to do if you're running a business, and you want to balance it out with making sure that you're giving the time to your family that they deserve, that they need, right? And you're also taking care of yourself, right? Before you can take care of others. And putting this all together, this is kind of the component that we talked about in the beginning, where you have that core four balance, right? That you're talking about in these segments of, hey, here are the two, I call it the transactional piece, but you did say something about this emotional piece as well. So that has to do with what's going on in your head. So that's a process that I kind of want to spend a little bit of time talking about as well. So what are your thoughts? So we get these two components in. Now, if you don't add that last component in, where you're balancing that out mentally and how that's helping you perform, how do you tie that all together in your method?
So when I coach my men, I ask them, where are you scoring points in these four quadrants of body, being, balance, and business? Are you scoring points daily in all four, or are you just focused too much on one right now? So we've got kind of the entrepreneurial cop-out that I do this all for my family. I'm only an entrepreneur for my family. I do this for my wife. I do it for my kids. Like, oh, well, they never see you. Your wife doesn't like you. Your kids don't know you. You're never around. How are you doing this for them? I get the whole, it's your duty to provide. That's great. But I had a friend who was making millions of dollars and still didn't have any kids yet. And his goal was to have kids. You don't want them? Okay. But he was saying he did. And he said, well, my wife and I were just making sure that we're really financially secure. And I'm like, how much money do you need to make to have one kid? Do you actually even want to have any kids? I mean, just be honest about what you want in life. Okay. So you're going to have kids. You're already right now setting the stage to be a workaholic because you already think you need to have $1 billion to have one kid. This isn't going to stop when you have kids. You got to learn to do this now, to split your focus, because you are splitting your focus across all the domains that you exist in. So you exist as a father, you exist as a husband, you exist as a business owner, you exist as a body, and we have to optimize these realms. So emotionally, if we're talking about what actually happens when things come crashing down, is that we all self-sedate. We all self-sedate stress to some degree. Some people use alcohol, drugs, but most people use eating and entertainment to self-sedate. Hence the meme of the 9-hour Netflix series. Don't have time to work out. I'm gonna binge watch the Netflix. And we let some area get pulled from. Now, if you're a businessman, you're probably not going to let it get pulled from the business realm. So you're going to let your fitness and your body fall to the wayside, or you're going to burn your marriage down, or your kids don't like you because you don't ever spend any time with them. They don't know you. They don't think you care much about them. So we have to balance these. So you wake up intentionally every day with, I'm going to score points in all of these domains. I'm going to have a connection with my wife today. We're going to have an intentional conversation. We're not just staring at our phones. Can't stand when I can tell when a couple's on date night and they're at a restaurant and they're sitting there staring at their phone, seeing what everybody else is doing on the planet except the most important person in front of them. Or they pretend they spend time with their kids and play with their kids, but they just sit in a chair on their phone while their kids are rollerblading or whatever. Not like, oh, I'm the man, but this morning I was rollerblading with my kids with my own rollerblades on, and we're rollerblading. And when you're not broken down and 80 pounds overweight, you can do that. But once you have the body to do it, you have to actually make sure you're there, present, and focused to do that as well. So intentional time with your kids every single day, not a couple days a week. It doesn't have to be for 2 hours, but you need to make a touch point with your kids, a touch point with your wife, get your workout in if it's your workout day, which we've discovered doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be for 2 hours a day. So we have the time to fit these things in if we're intentional about it. Then managing your stress. You're a Christian, I'm a Christian. We know that the Bible says to give that to God and not worry about tomorrow, but focus on what you can focus on today and do the work you can do. And all you can do is all you can do. And the rest is given to Him. That's managing our stress bucket, because our body only senses stress in one domain or one bucket. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. Marriage, business, the stress of our body, it all goes into one bucket. And then that thing overflows and starts pouring out everywhere. We sedate somehow and pull our mind out of it. And whether we do that with, again, drugs and alcohol or entertainment, or we'll find a way to burn our life down in some area. So to make sure that we're focused and intentional on journaling. You and I do stacking to deal with emotions and get ourselves focused in alignment. Reading your Bible gets you in alignment with the Creator every day, and making sure we're not focused and getting obsessed with one area of our life too much, but balancing this out across the board. And the main thing is just actually being intentional. You don't exist in that many areas. There's a few key things you do. You have a lot of things to do in business, but they all have to do with your business. You've got your kids, you have your wife, you have your body, you're eating. Just make sure you're being intentional with all of those things and not just focus on being good at one or two of them,
right?
And forgetting about everything else. And I'm tired of the cop-out that I'm a busy businessman and my body's gone to crap. And I make jokes about, women's bodies are these amazing things that create a baby in 280 days, and then we give them the dad bod. and our contribution to this was very
the
little.
the dad bod, I like that. So
one of my things is taking you from having a dad bod to a father figure.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot from dads. I noticed that they're like, oh man, I got the dad bod,
But they're like proud of it. They're like glorifying. I'm like, you guys just give it into like the body acceptance movement.
I don't know, but I think ever since I've been working out with you and going through the program and getting more lean and getting more tightened up, I think a lot of my peer friends are like, my gosh, man, what are you doing over there? So I think they're like, yeah, I'm kind of got the dad bod going on. So maybe they're kind of resonating.
I heard this the other day. I thought it was funny. It was like some meme, and it was no one tells you you're fat. It's part of the body acceptance thing. But then when you lose weight and get really in shape, no one has an issue telling you how fat you used to be. They're like, man, you look so good now. What do you mean? What I look like before?
No.
Oh, you were big and fat. Oh, you didn't tell me that when I was big and fat. You have no problem telling me now what I used to look like.
Well, to your point, just a quick story. I used to stop at this place when I'd go down south over the hill, and I'd always stop at this gas station. I'll get gas or get a coffee or whatever. And it'd been a while and done some remodeling. So I went there probably a few months ago, and the person that I used to see, she was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" I'm like, "What do you mean what happened?" I was like, "You haven't seen me in a while?" She's like, No. I mean, man, you used to be so heavy, right? She never told me that before, and she was just letting me know that obviously there was such a transformation from the last time that she saw me that she was really excited to.
She's like, "How are you liking Ozempic? Is it great?"
No. But the thing
I've had
is
so
that,
many clients.
Well, yeah, probably.
Did you do gastric or did you do Ozempic? They just assume you did something.
No, absolutely. But the funny part about this is that then she starts asking me questions. Hey, how did you do it? Like, what did you do? I explain the whole process of, losing the fat, losing the 83 pounds, and then, going through the whole process of working out a couple times a week or 3 times a week for an hour and total. And oh my gosh, right? So there's a lot of this where I think, to your point, I think people just, really don't say anything, but when they notice that change, that sparks interest, and then they start asking questions. So, I think that's relevant, right? But what I really like about what you're doing is you're not focusing just on the physical part of it, not on just the nutrition part of it. You are finding very great success in your clients if they incorporate the balance, the body, the mind, the spirit, right? The business part
why
of it.
does somebody overeat?
You know what? I think for me, I was using it because I was stressed out all the time and didn't have enough time in the day, and it was just easier to do it. And I spent a lot of time doing it.
Did you feel bad when you were eating? Or did you feel better when you were eating more?
Well, probably better when I was eating, right? But
I don't mean
bad
the result
afterwards.
of it. I don't mean the result of it.
Yeah,
I just mean
yeah.
when you're doing it, you're getting a dopamine release. There's not much stronger of a drive for a human than to consume, right? We have to eat to stay alive, drink to stay alive. We have to sleep to stay alive. So those very primal biological processes are going to be met. So we already have this very high inclination to do those things anyway. We have to do them for survival. When they're mixed in with stress and self-sedation, now we have this supercharged component to it where now we're super feeding. You never would have been able to do that 1,000 years ago. You didn't have the luxury of just consuming thousands of extra calories. It was too hard to get.
Sure.
But now we still have that primal biological trigger, but all we have to do is get off the couch, walk to the pantry, open up a bag of chips, and we have access to 2,000 calories 30 seconds after that initial craving. The reason that desire is so strong is because it had to get you out of the cave to go run and hunt an antelope and then put it on your back and carry it back and skin it and gut it and cook it. And then hours later, you were able to fulfill that craving. So there's this big delay. So if you weren't motivated enough, you would have died because you would have been like, I don't feel like going out hunting
absolutely.
today.
You had to work to live, right? You had to do something to live. So to your point.
But now hunting is, can I get this bag open? Like, how fast can I get this bag open? And then you can just consume, and then we're self-sedating. So people don't have an eating issue. We have a mental issue. We have an emotional issue. So when we can deal with those emotions, like we've talked about through stacking and journaling and making sure our life is balanced out, and we're managing stress, now we're not using the eating to self-sedate, and now our hunger cravings are going down to a normal level, and we're not chasing dopamine. And we could do a 5-hour podcast on just dopamine and screens and social media and all these things that have us oversaturated with this all the time that cause issues in other areas of our life. But intentionality with everything and all of these domains, making sure that we're balanced and intentional about what we're doing. We have the time, we have the energy, we're going to have more energy, we're going to have more time, because you can't create more time, but you can be more productive in time, and then therefore you do have more time. Just for example, for the workouts, we can get 8 hours back a week, we can get an entire workday back a week by switching the type of workout we do without getting any less results. Is that creating time or being more productive in time? However you want to look at it, you have 8 hours a week now more you did before. Now compound that over weeks and months and years. Imagine the extra businesses you could build, or the time you could have with your family, the vacations, the day trips, the dates, all this time you have back. And not only that, you have the energy to actually do it anyway. And you have the focus to do it because now you're intentional with all the areas that you exist in. So this is what fitness has missed over the years, which I think was your original question was, is that if you only teach someone to eat better and work out when they come to you and you don't know what difficulties they're dealing with in their life, you don't know anything about them other than the fact that it's very obvious something's wrong with their diet and their exercise, they're going to tell you that in 5 minutes. You can look at their body weight and realize we have a diet problem by looking at them, and they can tell you, I don't exercise, and we know they have an exercise problem. Those two things are the obvious outcomes, and we need to switch those routines over real quick.
Yep.
But that's just the first part. If they can't stay on that routine and we're not dealing with their stress and their emotional issues throughout all the other areas of their life, they're just going to burn it down at some point anyway. You're just waiting for them to not fall off the wagon, but leap off the wagon. The wagon's going to fall off a cliff and they're not going to find it for 10 years until they get so frustrated and so disgusted with themselves again that they find a new golden nugget, they find a new book to read and some new fitness guy, and they're going to try that new plan. This might be the magic bullet that finally gets me there. When in reality, maybe they've had the routine in the past, but they weren't dealing with the issues in the rest of their life to actually be able to handle this routine long term.
Well, and I think that's the point. Well, John, listen, I really appreciate you coming on the show. How do people find you?
Thanks for having me. The best way is probably just Instagram. My handle's John Thompson, no hyphens, no dots, just John Thompson spelled out. And you can follow me on there. You can message me on there. I can send my email and we can talk about getting started if that's something that you want to do.
No, that's great. Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. If you found this episode helpful and you want to share it with a friend or share it with someone that might find this beneficial, I highly encourage you to do so. Also subscribe if you're interested in hearing more. And if you want to find us on YouTube, we're at HeyCharles Biz. We are HeyCharles77 on Instagram and TikTok. See you next time.